Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you all. Thank you so much for joining us today in this webinar hosted by the Urantia Association's Education Committee. Today, we have the participation of Susan Lyon, who is presenting the theme, The Essentials of a Powerful Personal Religion. And now, I want to say a few words about our speaker. Susan Lyon is a graphic artist and poet. Having found the Urantia book in 1978, she has hosted study groups in her home over many years and lately hosts a virtual study group with her husband, Rick, who is also a longtime student of the book. Rick and Susan are involved in serving the Urantia community through their online store, Cosmic Creations.biz, through appearances at Urantia-related events throughout the year, and more recently have focused primarily on publishing secondary works based upon the Urantia book. Susan currently serves as membership chair of Greater Lake Michigan Urantia Association and maintains their website. Susan and Rick became friends in 2006 and married in 2016. Both find joy in doing the father's work together and spending time with their large blended family. Thank you, dear Susan, for your willingness to serve. The session is yours.
Thank you, Jeannie. Welcome to everyone. And I won't be able to see. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you giving your afternoon to us. And I see plenty of familiar faces. And I actually have a student that was in the course for UBIS that was a 10-week course that this material has been taken from. So Judy, welcome. And she'll hopefully help with some of the discussion as we get through. But I'm going to share my screen and hopefully you'll be able to see the material as we go through. Thanks for being here, Monica. Have a great day. Okay, so we'll begin. This course was built upon just a project that I did as a facilitator training project for Urantia Book Internet School. And after I began it, I thought, well, it was meaningful to me. So I thought I hoped to share it with others and they might find it useful too. It's the essentials of a powerful personal religion. And I don't sit here as an expert, but hopefully we'll share the material together and it might be helpful to you. So the source material and reading assignment for this, if you want to follow up afterwards, it's a basic lesson with a broad range of quotes and questions designed to interest faith students of all levels of understanding. Discussion will be welcoming and inclusive of the entire group. You're all welcome to participate. Just raise your hand if you'd like to speak. And all quotes are taken from the Urantia book. And only a few exceptions are not included in the following papers. Paper 99, The Social Problems of Religion. Paper 100, Religion and Human Experience. Paper 101, The Real Nature of Religion. Paper 102, The Foundations of Religious Faith. And paper 103, The Reality of Religious Experience. The experience of dynamic religious living transforms the mediocre individual into a personality of idealistic power. Religion ministers to the progress of all through fostering the progress of each individual, and the progress of each is augmented through the achievement of all. This one quote lit me up when I was doing my study for the project. I said to myself, this really sums up what we should aspire to. A powerful personal experience, religious experience that not only changes our lives, but the lives of everyone. So anyway, this was the gem that I pulled out that really sums it all up. Throughout this presentation, we will explore the key elements of religion. Living a powerful personal religion is dependent upon consciously tilling the fertile soil resident within our minds and souls as we seek to nurture and experience spiritual truths. Faith is renewable at any age and at any stage of development. Always the individual seeks higher meanings and expression on the spiritual journey from our first moral decision and the arrival of the indwelling spirit until we reach the promised land of indomitable faith. Prepare to have your faith revitalized as we study and discover the major contributing factors that you can choose to focus on to help you live your faith, share and improve your own religious experience, and more certainly achieve your spiritual goals in a powerful new way. Let's begin with where we are now. The question is, what are the most important elements of your personal religion today? You can type it in the chat, or we can, if you can remember, we'll open it up for discussion in a few minutes. But when I asked myself this question, when I was putting this project together, I said to myself, what are the handful of things that personal religion embody to me, the most important things? And, you know, I had to think about it a little bit. So I said to myself, okay, love, service, meditation, prayer, faith, and worship were probably a handful of things I could come up with that seemed like they summed it all up. But the more I thought about it and the more I dug into the religion papers, and I might include at this time too, I was taking this facilitator training with 3 other students, and we were all based upon the same papers, and we came up with 4 totally different courses that didn't include any of the same material. So if I can come up with 24 major elements and 3 other students can come up with just as many that most didn't even match mine, that shows the resource we have with these religion papers. And we read through, but there are so many layers of elements that we could focus on to improve our own religious experience. So for the essentials, I would like for everyone to think of their religious experience being personal and individual. But the whole thing about religion is when someone shares their religion, they're sharing their religious experience with you. So what we mean to do is create our own religion. And that means choosing the elements that work for us, that give us joy, that are meaningful, that improve our life, improve our religious experience. And as I'm looking at this list, meditation as such, as I've been taught meditation, is one of the key elements that I always said has to be a part of religion, but it didn't work for me. So I felt, okay, my religion isn't fitting the perfect religion as described because I didn't do meditation the way I thought it should be done. But now I'm beginning to think that what I do takes the place of meditation. So that's what I want you to be open to, is the possibility that not every single thing that someone else tells you is meaningful for them will be meaningful to your own experience. So we're going to a smorgasbord of essentials of religion, and you choose what works for you and makes that a powerful, meaningful, personal experience. Okay, I'm going to go through it real quickly and then we'll open this up for discussion before we go to the next session. So let me get through the material so we don't miss anything really quick. the common themes we discover as we went through the 5 papers are knowing God, building trust, assurance and certainty of knowing the true nature of God, providing for personal growth, knowing yourself, your role as a child of God, and cooperating and committing yourself to cultivate the garden of your own soul. In other words, actively participating, not just letting religion happen to you, but actually improving the chances of a more sure relationship with God himself. Nurturing the fertile soil to enhance spiritual growth and to create a willingness to walk with God. One of the things I found that was very much a recurring theme was making thoughtful decisions, purposeful, thoughtful decisions. So the revelators are telling us that we devote every aspect of our lives to God through informed and well thought out decisions, as in the example Jesus revealed to us when he went in the mountains, choosing the way of God, and then nurturing divine relationships, not just our relationship with God, but his divine family. And that includes all of humanity. And the result is we have these budding relationships in the moment, but also that continue throughout eternity. So we look at things in a way that is not just short term, but long term. Okay, and then what is ideal religion? It's personal, individual, cosmic, and supreme. And by that I mean that some reading we've done recently on the supreme led me to understand that God looks at us as an individual, and he's interested in us as a personality and as an individual, but the supreme looks at us as our function in the whole. So part of our religion is also important to the supreme, and that is not just the inner religion, but how we function in the universe and what our religion does for the whole. So I'd like for you to keep that in mind. Religion is urgently called upon to function as a wise guide and experienced counselor in all the new and rapidly changing human situations. And we all know that our world is changing quickly. Religion must act as the cosmic salt, which prevents the ferments of progression from destroying the cultural savor of civilization. These new social relations and economic upheavals can result in lasting brotherhood only by the ministry of religion. Spiritual growth is first an awakening to needs, next a discernment of meanings, and then a discovery of values. The evidence of true spiritual development consists in the exhibition of a human personality motivated by love, activated by unselfish ministry, and dominated by the wholehearted worship of the perfection ideals of divinity. And this entire experience constitutes the reality of religion, as contrasted with mere theological beliefs. We're told that true religion brings forth courage when challenged by the inevitabilities of life. Religion is not an escape for the timid religionist, but rather a clarion call for growth. Jesus' advice, I admonish you to give up the practice of always quoting the prophets of old, or the Urantia book, and praising the heroes of Israel, and instead aspire to become living prophets of the Most High and spiritual heroes of the coming kingdom. That would be us. So I would like to open it up for discussion. And Rick, would you begin the timer?
Yes, I will. There you go.
Okay. Do we have anyone that would like to jump in there and talk about what their religion means to them or any of the things that we've gone over?
We have a few comments in the chat.
Okay, do you want to read those?
Sure. The first comment that we have is from Kurt, and he says faith and connection to God and serving the divine family. That's in response to your initial question.
Okay.
Then Didrik said, creating the kingdom on planet Earth and hitting my personal potential. And then David Hagelin said, proclaiming and sharing the kingdom as sovereign sons and daughters, brothers and sisters. And then Judy said, evolving connectivity to God in my own personal way, which I think that's the heart of this course right there. And then Kurt said, meditation in the Urantia book is not what is thought of as religion, or excuse me, as meditation today. It would be good to go through the 5 meditation techniques and mark out the general methods compared to Urantia. And that's probably a good topic for a course.
Right. Kurt, are you available to tell us a little bit more about that right now?
Sure. Somewhere online you can find a paper that was written by a gentleman named Peter Holly, who's now passed on, called Jesus Style Meditation. And I happened to give a workshop about this several years ago. And back then, if you go into the 1928 dictionary you can find online, or some other old dictionaries, meditation meant to think deeply, to ponder, to cogitate, to use your mind. It wasn't the kind of meditation that we think of now, which is this stillness and emptying. And it's not the same thing at all. That's when Jesus was out meditating, he wasn't emptying his mind. He was thinking really deeply. So if you want to meditate like Jesus, it's a whole different kind of thing.
I really appreciate what you say, because that's exactly where I had a problem myself personally, was trying to empty my mind. And now, I mean, I realized that what I was doing was the more worshipful problem solving. And that always was sponsored by gratitude and a feeling of thanksgiving that would launch me into that in prayer. So I think it's very important for you to get that word out to people, because I think, I might speak for many that say they've really kind of banged their head on a wall with this whole meditation thing. And the more we know about how to go into that and, appreciate what it can do for us, the better.
Yeah, it's certainly stillness can be a part, and opening yourself up to let the spirit enter us to kind of work in our minds without us interfering is certainly a part of it, but it's not the whole thing with meditation.
Right. And so how long have you been meditating in your manner of meditation? What would you refer to it as, meditation, or do you refer to it as something else?
Well, for me, it's more working things out with God is what I would term it. It's that I go to God with my problems that there's prayer, there's gratefulness, there's worship, there's some time and stillness, and then just feeling God's embrace is kind of a part of what I do.
So you have a process that it seems to one evolves into the next.
Yeah.
That's sort of what I've found that I developed too, and to just sit down and still my mind didn't work. So Diedrich, you mentioned that you had a goal of ministry. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Thank you. I appreciate this session. I do kind of want to talk about that, but what my big brother Kurt talked about, I kind of want to extrapolate off that, if you don't mind.
That's great.
I guess it's just conversation, right? If you don't mind, I'll be real quick. It's just like a quick little parable, right? I feel like exactly. Thank you for telling me that too, Kurt. You looked up the definition of meditation in the early 1900s to figure out exactly what the Urantia book meant by meditation. Ooh, that's really slick. That's really clever. because a lot of people can construe this term with, the Om and Nirvana. And don't get me wrong, I meditate 3 times a day for at least 20 minutes. We have an energetic self. We're generating a Urantia form. We have an adjuster. We have to tap into these. It's mind, body, and spirit. You have to have all 3. But I feel like this term has gotten watered down. And if you don't mind, I like to give a personal little parable. It'll be quick. 2 twins are born at the exact same time. Okay. Both twins want to serve God. They want to do the Father's will. One twin goes into the woods and meditates under the tree, meditates the best meditation, the hardest meditation that anybody's ever meditated on the planet Earth, meditates better than anybody who's ever walked the planet Earth, lives and dies in the woods, doesn't even contact anybody else. The other twin, identical twin, also wants to serve the Father, but instead of just meditating in the woods forever, he meditates, a couple days or once every day, which is like 20 minutes, and he goes and builds a kingdom. They both die at the exact same time. Coincidence, huh? Then they get up to the Father. When they meet the Father, I wonder what the Father's going to say. You know what I'm trying to say? One built the kingdom, one didn't. And I have a big problem with this teaching of stagnation. As Urantia book readers, we all understand that stagnation and crystallization is totally against the universal trend. It's totally against the Father's will. We are meant to evolve and progress. He wants us to be the best person we can be. So this teaching of turn off your mind via meditation, it's like a teaching of stagnation. Me personally, I don't agree with that at all. And I think as Urantia book readers, it is our duty to take this message to the world so that they understand that it's not about turning your personality off. It's about using meditation as a fuel to go, to act. Where does it say in the Urantia book that meditation should be like linked in with contact with the material reality service? Like it should be used as fuel to act. And what you asked me directly, sorry, I wanted to extrapolate off what Kurt said, but what you asked me directly, yeah, I purposely, I'm not purposely, I'm constantly trying to hit my personality potential. I'm trying to see what I'm made of. I want to see the max I can go, mind, body, and spirit. That's what I put in the chat. And number 2, this reality that I'm now tapped into is more savory than anything I've ever experienced in my life. And it's not going to stop. It's forever. It's past this life. So if I've tapped into this, like now I'm like a little kid, I'm giddy. I want to go give my brother and my sister the same opportunity. I want them to experience the same, that the highest reality that the universe has to offer them. So that's twofold, right? What did Jesus say when the Pharisees and the Sadducees said, what's the most important of the 10 commandments? He said, number 1, love the Father with all your heart, strength, soul, and mind, your mind, body, and your spirit. Number 2, love your brother as yourself. So that's what I'm trying to do, hit my potential and help my brother do the same. That's it. I love you guys.
That's great. Thanks, Diedrich. Okay. Rick, are you?
Yeah, I'll make a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
I think when it comes to meditation, I learned the most about meditation when I read what Rodin had to say about Jesus' method. And it's in paper 160, section 1, I think this is paragraph 10. Said, but the greatest of all methods of problem solving I have learned from Jesus, your master. I refer to that which he so consistently practices and which he has so faithfully taught you, the isolation of worshipful meditation. And this habit of Jesus going off so frequently by himself to commune with the Father in heaven is to be found the technique not only of gathering strength and wisdom for the ordinary conflicts of living, but also of appropriating the energy for the solution of the higher problems of a moral and spiritual nature. So I think that's pretty much in tune with what Kurt and Diedrich were saying there, that, and meditation is about taking your problems to God, working with God, to solve those problems. And then as Diedrich says, you have to follow up on that and you have to act upon those things. You can't just meditate. You have to, in the Urantia book, is one of the great lessons of the Urantia book is that, it's not just belief and faith, but it's the fruits of the Spirit, the action that you take as a result of your belief and faith.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're going to move on to our next section. Oh, Kurt, did you want to say? Oh, I'm sorry. I saw your hand.
Yeah, just 1 second. It's one thing. It would be nice if you could stop sharing when we get into the discussion so we can see each other. And the second is, it's not Diedrich, it's Dedrick.
I was just about to say thank you, big bro. Thank you.
No, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't know, but I'll try to do it right from now on. I'm not sure I want, Kurt, can you not see any? I think it might help if you changed your view of your pictures of the people.
I'm on my iPad and I can only see 4 people when you have screen sharing going on.
I'm hesitant to take down my PowerPoint thing, or I'm afraid of losing where I'm at, if that makes any sense.
Okay, I'll just scroll. I'll just have to scroll to whoever's talking. That's right.
Or could you possibly just put it on the speaker view and it'll pop up whoever's speaking?
I can't switch to speaker view when you were sharing.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we're gonna go to the next. Okay, this is paper 99. And Rick, start the timer, okay?
Okay.
This is the social problems of religion. Now, we didn't include this in the UBIS course because they thought it might be wise not to encourage anything that might get into political or social reform. But let's briefly go through this and see possibly what we as individuals can do and what they're encouraging us to do. Religion teaches peaceful means to achieve social reform. Religion quickens and adapts to social change. Religion, a force for more moral stability and spiritual progress. Religion stabilizes ideals during times of transition. Religion provides enhanced cosmic insight, wisdom. Religion conserves the worthwhile culture of each age. Religion inspires cosmic loyalty in the individual citizen. The religionist is not unsympathetic with social suffering, not unmindful of civil injustice, not insulated from economic thinking, neither insensible to political tyranny. Religion influences social reconstruction directly because it spiritualizes and idealizes the individual citizen. Indirectly, cultural civilization is influenced by the attitude of these individual religionists as they become active and influential members of various social, moral, economic, and political groups. The attainment of a high cultural civilization demands first the ideal type of citizen, and then ideal and adequate social mechanisms wherewith such a citizenry may control the economic and political institutions of such an advanced human society. The great weakness of all this unrecognized and unconscious type of religious activity is that it is unable to profit from open religious criticism and thereby attain to profitable levels of self-correction. That's where we're at today, according to the Urantia book. It is a fact that religion does not grow unless it is disciplined by constructive criticism, amplified by philosophy, purified by science, and nourished by loyal fellowship. Religionists as a group must never concern themselves with anything but religion, albeit any one such religionist as an individual citizen may become the outstanding leader of some social, economic, or political reconstruction movement. Now, I'm just going to say briefly, I think that many of us that take this calling seriously as an apostle say, wow, we should not do anything but teach religion. But I see from this statement that we must be involved if we're going to do the things that this tells us we should be doing. If we're going to stabilize the world we live in, if we're going to provide and conserve worthwhile culture, we have to be involved. but we have to be involved as great citizens. Okay, I'm gonna open it up for discussion. If anyone has anything they'd like to contribute. How can we do this? Or would you like to share what you're doing right now? Dedrick, did you have your hand up?
I did. It's funny that you say it. So I'm currently working on the kingdom in my personal way. I have the Legacy FHP, Legacy Foundation for Human Progress. I'm just angling the values of the Urantia book through a formal life coaching process. And I'm also an American. There's a lot of stuff going on in America right now. And like, you know, as a human being, I'm like, oh man, I got a couple people under me. They're all UB red. They're young kids, you know, 25 below, 30 below. They actually have no clue that the Urantia organization exists, but I'm starting to bring them in. But we're looking at the world like, okay, we know the Urantia book tells us not to get involved politically, you know, not to get involved economically. So this is so funny. We just had a meeting last night about do you create a new party? Like, what are we supposed to do? And technically, the kingdom is supposed to be an organic group that kind of trains people, and after they go there, they go out. Like a member of a political organization would get trained by the spiritual foundation, and they go back out to the political party and change the planet, as opposed to like the Legacy being a political party. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, or economic ideology. And me personally, this is hard to tackle currently, especially in 21st century Urantia. If anybody else has some ideas on it, I'd love to hear it.
Kurt, you have your hand up. Thanks, Rick.
Yes, kind of relating to what Dedrick just said. I have been working on a project for a while that I call the ROPE. And the ROPE is an acronym for the Religion of Personal Experience. And I have very ambitious hopes for it. My hope is that it can become the religion that is the renewal of the religion of Jesus in this world, and serves as a foundation for uniting religions that have just been branching and branching and branching for the last 2,000 years. You know, we're kind of dealing with a situation where many people there's a whole group of people called the nuns. A lot of young people are in this group, and those are the people that have no religious affiliation, but they still have certain spiritual sense that there is a God, but they're turned off by the institutionalized religions, which is exactly what this paper is telling us about. It's telling us about all the failures. In developing the ROPE, I've made a conscious decision that just like the Urantia book says Jesus was trying to do, and he told the apostles time after time, is that there be no affiliation to any political, social, or economic institutions, or even give any advice. Jesus wouldn't even give advice on how they should run their own organization of the apostles and the disciples. That's not what the religion of personal experience is about. The religion of personal experience is about our connection to God. That's it. And then in serving God's family, the brotherhood of man, as it was termed in the Urantia book. So the kingdom of God, the brotherhood of men, it's God's family that we're here to serve. And when we get into anything social, even good things, I don't think, if I have any say about it, the religion of personal experience will not even get involved in food pantries or anything like that, because that's not what it should be involved with. It's just about connecting with God and encouraging people to connect with God and connect with each other in loving service.
Kurt, I want to ask you then to take a look at that last quote and tell me, what do you think it means when it says, you know, as a group, we must not concern ourselves with anything but religion.
Right. As a religious group, we won't have anything to do with anything but religion. But each person is free to go out and become involved in those things, and that hopefully their religion will inform them and be their inspiration for how they go and do this important work that really needs to be done.
Okay.
But that's not what the religion is about. The religion is about connection to God. And then once you're connected with God and you're trying to do God's will and you have the desire to serve, then you go out and do that. And then you can become involved in those other areas in society.
Right. Great. Okay, David, you're up next. David Hadland.
Hi guys, just want to say real quickly, I love you all, my brothers and sisters, sons and daughters of the Father's kingdom. I wrote some comments here. Religion is attached to nothing, only to the kingdom relationship of union with the Father and his children in his kingdom. And that includes everyone, even the creator son is a child of God. So, it's doorkeeper. When you have worship together, someone has to keep the door, and there's always going to be a tendency for people to want to engage in socio-politico, economico, whatever, which encroaches upon the communion with love for the Father and love for the family. And then I wrote down, Jesus' religion is a new type and order of religion, a cosmic religion. So we all know everything between this side of paradise. So we know all the stops on the train track to paradise. Cosmic religion, the ones of the past are fundamentally different. So the power personalization of the Urantia revelation creates freedom beyond what the old religions represent. We live in constant adjusted auto-revelation as individuals and as a social, spiritual unity in the kingdom of God. So just wanted to run through those points that I was thinking of. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks, David. I think Bennett, you're up next.
I had just put a thumbs up to what was being said a moment ago, but I will have something in a couple minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Glad to see you here, Bennett. Okay, I think do we have another hand up? David Henry. David?
Yeah, you're muted, David.
Oops, sorry. Kurt and Susan kind of covered what I was gonna say, but in the meantime, I thought of some other things, like the second from last paragraph says, it is a fact that religion does not grow unless it is disciplined by constructive criticism, amplified by philosophy, purified by science, and nourished by loyal fellowship. That's a tough one right there. It's one thing to reintroduce the teachings of Jesus. It's another thing to introduce the Urantia book, but it's another thing to get people to appreciate constructive criticism of their religion. I have never run into an individual who was willing to do that. I mean, I used to invite Baptist missionaries into my house and whatnot, and they just read me the riot act because I didn't read the King James version of the Bible. I was being influenced by the devil because I was reading Revised Standard Version. So yeah, we have a long way to go. I went to my 50-year high school reunion and I got in contact with an old friend of mine. actually was going to become a Baptist minister, and he did for a while, but then he quit it and went into private business. But he wanted to know if I still, I introduced him to the Urantia book and several of my other friends, and he did read it for a while, but then he just completely rejected it. But he was going to go to the Urantia, to the high school reunion until he found out that I still read and study and believe in the Urantia book. And then he just cut me off. So, I agree with Kurt. There are a lot of people out there who are spiritual and they're completely unaffiliated. And, that's a great group. But I think we have some things socially and economically and politically to go through that's going to shock people, shake them out of their lethargy, to get them to reassess just what their belief system is. So thank you.
David, you make a great point. And I think, honestly, the virus and the, self isolation has caused a lot of people to reevaluate their beliefs and their faith. And, that third paragraph that you mentioned talks about the profitable levels of self-correction. Self-correction meaning looking at our own religion instead of judging others' religious experiences. So that's part of what I'm trying to encourage is an appreciation for us to fine-tune our own experiences and not to allow someone else's religious standard to stand in the way of us growing. So I think we're getting late on time here. If you don't mind, I think we better get on to our next section or we're not going to make it through. Okay. So we're going to move on to paper 100. And this gets down to more of the personal experience of religion, cultivating growth, creating a life of religious ideals, conditioned spiritual reflexes, establishing spiritual habits. I think that's one real important thing that we should dig into. Assurance of true religion versus theological beliefs, consecrated purpose, devotion, and mental mobilization, realizing self-worth through sonship with God, knowing your Father, knowing God as your Father, and man as your brother, unquestioning loyalty and devotion to supreme values, knowing the nature of God through Jesus' lovely character. Although the average mortal of Urantia cannot hope to attain the high perfection of character which Jesus of Nazareth acquired while sojourning in the flesh, it's altogether possible for every mortal believer to develop a strong and unified personality along the perfected lines of the Jesus personality. The unique feature of the Master's personality was not so much its perfection as its symmetry, its exquisite and balanced unification. The most effective presentation of Jesus consists in following the example of the one who said, as he gestured toward the Master, standing before his accusers, "Behold the man." Jesus was the perfectly unified human personality, and today, as in Galilee, he continues to unify mortal experience and to coordinate human endeavors. He unifies life, ennobles character, and simplifies experience. He enters the human mind to elevate, transform, and transfigure it. It is literally true. If any man has Christ Jesus within him, he is a new creature. Old things are passing away. Behold, all things are becoming new. And so we're going to go through some of the acme of religious living. And I would like for you to look at them. I'm going to keep each screen up for 1 minute. And just read through yourselves. I'm not going to read it because it'll slow us down. But read through it and see these character traits. And all of these traits, when we've seen Jesus, we've seen the Father. And I think if we think about sharing even these traits of Jesus with others, that they might know the Father is the source of those. That is his character. That is his personality. That's a huge resource for us. And think about how you might align your personality to more closely resemble these traits. I'll keep each up for a minute. I have 3 slides. And the last one. Anyone want to offer what they think is their favorite character of Jesus that they feel may be useful to them to improve their own religious experience? Do you see anything?
How about all of them? Can you pick all of them?
Do you have a place to start?
But that's the balanced character. We did a little thing like this some time ago about picking out your favorite trait of Jesus, and mine was as well as many others, was the incredible balance of his nature.
Mhm.
And all of these point in that direction.
You're so right, David. Okay, Bennett, you've got your hand up.
About to say most nearly the same thing as David. Good to see you all. It's not exactly expressed in one of these lines, but Jesus's presence of mind, his total unification of character, just the way he approached everything. He was never thrown off guard. And yet, in that unification, he was able to teach others. And one wondered if they could see past the wisdom in what he said to see his own personal methods, that they could really, you've got a much better chance of imitating his behavior than you do of penetrating the level of his thought. I'll leave that.
Okay, I'm going to go on to this next slide then. The goal of human self-realization should be spiritual, not material. The only realities worth striving for are divine, spiritual, and eternal. Mortal man is entitled to the enjoyment of physical pleasures and to the satisfaction of human affections. He is benefited by loyalty to human associations and temporal institutions. But these are not the eternal foundations upon which to build the immortal personality, which must transcend space, vanquish time, and achieve the eternal destiny of divine perfection and finaliter service. Most of the spectacular phenomena associated with so-called religious conversions are entirely psychologic in nature, but now and then there do occur experiences which are also spiritual in origin. When the mental mobilization is absolutely total on any level of the psychic upreach towards spirit attainment, when there exists perfection of the human motivation of loyalties to the divine idea, then there very often occurs a sudden downgrasp of the indwelling spirit to synchronize with the concentrated and consecrated purpose of the superconscious mind of the believing mortal. And it is such experiences of unified intellectual and spiritual phenomena that constitute the conversion, which consists in factors over and above purely psychologic involvement. And I wonder if you have any comments about that. And do we review our worship experiences with the purpose of continued improvement? I've always worked jobs where my boss would always say at review, how are you going to continually improve? Is that something that's valid when we think of our religious experience, our prayerful life, our worship experience? What are your feelings about that? Sounds like there's room for excellence there, isn't? If your adjuster can downgrasp, if we have perfection of human motivation, loyalty to the divine ideal, consecrated purpose.
Kurt has his hand up.
Kurt, what do you think?
Well, I just wanted to say that although we can certainly make those sudden reaches to God where there's a downgrasp or upgrasp and God's downgrasp coincide, and we can make these, these sudden advances. Mostly it's just slow, steady progress, one step at a time. It's building those habits of learning to go to God. For me, it's to prayer and worship and trying to bring God into everything that I do and constantly remind myself that he's there. Those are the things that make progress. In serving other people, all those things, that's the slow, steady, just desire to try to do God's will. We're not going to get there all at once. That's not how we grow. That's a kind of a new age concept that we can suddenly become perfect. And that's not what the Urantia book says. It's just one step at a time.
I agree with you, Kurt, that growth is unconscious, but we're also, I'm reading all these quotes that tell me that we can nurture growth by our own activities. So I agree that it's one step at a time and slow growth. But how do we slowly grow toward absolute mental mobilization? How do we, what are the steps that you take to have a perfection of human motivation? What do you do to have perfection of loyalty to the divine idea? What do you do to have synchronized, concentrated, and consecrated purpose? What do you do when you have the goal to aspire to upreach toward the spirit? It says very often this can happen. Are we saying to ourselves, are we limiting ourselves by saying we know it's slow growth, but are we saying, well, we'll be satisfied with what happens? Or is there something we can actively do to focus on the things that take us to that place? You think it's possible?
I think it's possible, and it's by doing it one step at a time. That's how growth takes place. I think you make those decisions. That in my life, it's been making the decision that I'm bringing God into my life as much as I can, and that I'm going to try to discover God's will and try to do it, try to serve other people. And that's how I'm going to make it to paradise. You know, it is a process, but we make that process, those steps. We gain that consecrated purpose, that all wholehearted motivation by doing it a bit at a time, and we'll get there.
And by getting results more and more gradually, results.
Yeah, I'm finding that I'm getting results as I do this. Like, I mean, it's amazing how I find my angels working in my life so much more since in the last 6 months, I've really dedicated myself to developing a spiritual practice every day that takes me a couple of hours to do. And makes me want to do more of that. So yeah, I'm making progress by doing it, adding a little bit each day.
Well, that reminds me of the purposeful decisions and building the spiritual habits that you're talking about. So all of that contributes to us getting to this place. All right, David Henry's next. Okay. Thanks, Kurt.
Well, I was actually going to say everything that Susan said and Kurt said, but again, some other things came to mind. One of the things we're reminded of over and over again is that, excuse me, nothing takes the place of experience. When you feel that down grasp, when you're reaching up for God, when you have that spiritual experience, when you keep that with you, or at least keep that memory with you, when you spend time in prayer and worship, you foster that. But there's nothing that takes the experience, and Jesus said this over and over again, is that nothing takes the place of experience. You need to be out with other people. There's one aspect that I thought was really fascinating, something that Jesus could do, was that he could draw people out. He could ask them questions about what they thought. I mean, when you think about his trip to Rome, all the people he met and talked to and whatnot, he could do that without being meddlesome. Now, there's a real trick. And now you can't learn how to do that unless you really have a loving concern for your fellows. So I think nothing takes the place of experience. And there's a saying that I've repeated many times, is that God will not steer a parked car.
A good one. Okay, Rick, who's next? Thanks, David. Bennett, you're up next.
Well, about to offer some thoughts from my parked car, but hopefully I'll put it in gear. There's several small quotes throughout the book that we read them, hours or months apart at times when we're going through a normal reading or perhaps waiting on study group. One of them is, and I'm sure that you all know this one. It's so significant. When people give God all they have, God makes those people more than they are. Oh, here's my ceiling. Oh, well, it just shattered now. But it's God that helps us up, because we're truly knocking at the door, but the door's not in front of us. The door's above us. The door's within us. And in another place, it says that when we're confronted by moral decisions or by significant decisions, the adjuster doesn't poke his head figuratively in our life and say, do this out loud, but leans on the preferential decision, is one way to look at it. And then a third part of that is, every time a person makes a correct moral decision, they experience a new divine invasion of the soul. What does that mean? It sounds fantastic, but what does that mean? And what it means is, again, The adjuster is reaching out and down to pull you up and in to validate where you are. And as long as we maintain our poise and don't get too caught up in, it's, I think, part of why Jesus was so stable in his emotional life. It's nice to get happy and be infused with joy and all that. It's necessary to feel sometimes depressed or hurt or sad, or, we're just stuck for a while. Can't avoid it. My favorite word in the book for that is vicissitudes. Oh, those vicissitudes came and mugged me again. But in point of fact, when you take it in stride and you stay in touch with God, it stabilizes you. It keeps you in that poise. And those three different parts of the book I just described are really all essentially the same thing.
Thank you, Bennett. That's great. Okay, Dedrick, we have 2 minutes left before our next session. So you get the 2 minutes.
Wow. Oh, wow. Thank you. That's crazy. I'll be quick. With when the mental mobilization is absolutely total. So the way I perceive that is, this can be taken in multiple different ways. I'm just going to use my example and you guys can extrapolate. So it's like reading a book, like imagine reading some type of text. And if you don't fully understand it all, you don't really get the correct perception, right? And say it's a religious text or a philosophical or meditative text or a political text, whatever type of text you want it to be. Once you understand that text to its fullest, and then, so that's the mental mobilization is absolutely total. You understand the entire text, right? And then on any level of the psychic upreach towards a spirit attainment, when there exists perfection of the human motivation of loyalties to the divine idea, these are prerequisites for the adjuster to actually make contact with us. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So like, if I can take it personally, like I needed to read the Urantia book all the way through and through in order to get the right understanding. And you read it 30 times to get the, that ooh, and all in the back of my hand. That's my total mental mobilization. But it's not enough just to read the book, like the book is just words. It's in your, it's that internal storage. That's good. But that's one prerequisite. Prerequisite number 2, you need to have that psychic upreach. You need to want it. That's only 2 prerequisites though. It's not all of them. But those prerequisites need to align with the divine idea.
Right.
And that kind of opens up a channel. You know what I'm saying? So the adjuster just like, let's go, boy. And then he activates you. And to me, that's insane. Like this is like almost a scientific manual on how to get the adjuster to come down and synchronize with you. So learn as much as you can, guys. Read as much as you can so you can be used for God. And line up your will with the divine will, right? To open up that channel so you can just get the adjuster right in your chest.
You talk, the way you talk, I can tell, you're engaged with the spirit of truth. And that spirit gives us the conviction of truth, but it also gives us that certainty and that spiritual power, that passion. And I can sense it in you, Dedrick, for sure. But this is what I'm hoping people will start to tear these things apart and analyze and say, okay, these are the elements. They're giving us the recipe for a powerful personal religion. And what I don't want is for people to get stuck or to say, I'm going to put my religion on the shelf for a while because life is busy or whatever. Kurt talked about creating these spiritual habits and, all of these things, if we dig into these and look, okay, where can I improve this for myself? Not to teach someone else, but how can I help myself have a passionate, powerful experience with God and take that to the world? That's what I want. So anyway, is our time up? Or
Tanjali, I've got David Henry and David Ryman.
David Ryman, why don't we hear from you for just a moment here? Okay, thanks, Dedrick.
Well, thank you all, and I trust you can hear me okay.
Yes.
I keep looking at your question. Do we review our worship experiences with the purpose of continued improvement?
Mhm.
And I just shared, Becky would know this, and some of the other people that are in my study group would know this. I treat my study group as my worship experience. I'm worshiping with my study group. Now, I am new to the Urantia study group. Okay, I'm not new to the Urantia book. I'm new to participating with other Urantia people. And so I'm going through this process. And 9 months ago, 6 months ago, because we're currently studying the religious papers, what we're talking about today. And I kept asking my study group, I says, well, they're criticizing this religious leader because of this point, and they're agreeing with this religious leader because of that point. What is a real religion? I want to know what a real religion is. I want to embrace a real religion. And it wasn't until about 6 months ago, believe this or not, and my wife really likes this, it wasn't until about 6 months ago that I woke up to the fact that religion is personal.
Right.
Now, all of y'all are talking with a lot of years of experience and so forth, but this little newbie is just now realizing that religion is personal. And I don't have to go back to these religious leaders and say, well, I don't want to embrace that concept. I don't want to embrace that concept. I'm at a point of my religious growth that I now understand I have to continue to develop it within. And that's what I'm trying to do. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you. And that's exactly what we're talking about, is developing your own religion. And it meets your standards because you do the homework. You make the choices. It's relevant to you. And anytime you hear religion by someone else, we're taught from the Urantia book, that's philosophy. That's the study of other people's religious experiences. So we're going to take it to the personal, individual level in the future. Hopefully the whole world will. And shop for the items that are meaningful to them. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next paper. This is paper 101, The Real Nature of Religion. And that discussed triumphing over logical despair, the inevitabilities. And we've all had our share of experience with that in the last year. Making divine contact through spiritual thinking, discovering new spiritual meanings, exhibiting the characteristics of true religion, religion expanded by revelation, clarified knowledge, personality synthesis of man with the essence of God, purposeful idea decisions, the passport to paradise, universe citizenship, faith liberation. Okay, so the inevitabilities, and Bennett just mentioned the vicissitudes of life. And we did a conference, a Midwest conference on that. Bennett was involved and developed the program. But the inevitabilities were the basis of a conference that we renamed Burdens to Blessings. And there are quotes from, I believe, Mighty Messengers that said they fattened upon the vicissitudes of their journey to paradise. They looked forward to these. And isn't there a quote that says that the greatest hardship in the universe is never having had a hardship? So when we look at these inevitabilities, it tells us, Bennett, you could probably expound on this better than me, but all of these things, courage, altruism, hope, a lot of these are the spirits, the spirit fruits. These inevitabilities develop, they give us the meat to grow on, to grow these spiritual fruits. So courage, altruism, hope, faith. This one is one of my favorites. Love of truth, not just truth, but love of truth. Where's your passion? that's part of that mental mobilization toward truth that is so key to my experience. Idealism, loyalty, unselfishness, and pleasure. We're given the right to have a happy and joyful life. So all of these things, I mean, we have a recipe here for facing problems, facing these vicissitudes. Bennett, why don't you tell us what you've got to say about this?
Well, one, I think you're doing a great job of laying this out. I will not improve upon it, but for those who might want to look at this from a little different angle, it's very easy to follow. But something that I've found useful over the last 10 years or so is what I call reversing or folding back on itself the words of the book and seeing how they mean in that sense. So what that might mean for number 4, faith, it might sound like this. The supreme assertion of human thought is faith. Is that desirable? And approach the question from there. And you can do that. They don't all flow as easily as that one, but you can figure out how it works. And I find that this is also a good technique in some of the more telling parts of the book, like the religion papers and like the last paper, where it goes into great detail about how Jesus approached his faith. And they refer to that faith of Jesus as the religion of supremacy. And there are several other quotes in the book that point us back to the fact that Jesus is the one person in all Nebadon who has had the full experience of supremacy relating to his perfected growth in his sovereignty and how that relates to the growing supreme being. But I'm not capable of explaining all of that, so I'll leave it right there.
Thanks, Bennett. And so all of this really is giving us an opportunity to have that supreme experience like Jesus did, which is something that all of the spiritual beings seek. They seek the experience. So we should value, I think value it more than dread it is possibly a better and more positive way of looking at it. The characteristics of true religion. This is something that we dug into in our 10-week course. And besides the fruits of the Spirit, these are some of the things that help you recognize in yourself, not judging others, but recognize in yourself where you're making progress or maybe where you would like to focus. Genuine spiritual faith, true moral consciousness. I won't read them all. I'm going to give you a minute to take a look at these, though, 1 full minute. And make a note for yourself. All good? Okay. All right. And then religion expanded by revelation, which we're blessed to have a revelation in our time, provides the reduction of confusion by the authoritative elimination of error. These are all tools for us to use to share this message, the teachings of Jesus. We've got all of these as our toolbox now. The coordination of known or about to be known facts and observations. The restoration of important bits of lost knowledge. How important is that? Concerning epical transactions in the distant past. The supplying of information which fills in vital missing gaps and otherwise earned knowledge. And presenting cosmic data in such a manner as to illuminate the spiritual teachings contained in the accompanying revelation. Now rather are the sons of God enlisted together, that's us, in fighting the battle of reality's triumph over the partial shadows of existence. At last, all creatures become conscious of the fact that God and all the divine hosts of a well-nigh limitless universe are on their side in the supernal struggle to attain eternity of life and divinity of status. Such faith-liberated sons have certainly enlisted in the struggles of time on the side of the supreme forces and divine personalities of eternity. Even the stars in their courses are now doing battle for them. At last, they gaze upon the universe from within, from God's viewpoint, and all is transformed from the uncertainties of material isolation to the sureties of eternal spiritual progression. Even time itself becomes but the shadow of eternity cast by paradise realities upon the moving panoply of space. We're living in that reality. Revelation has brought that truth to us, and you're welcome to comment. Anybody? David Hagland.
Yeah, it's really wonderful to hear everybody talking about the Urantia book, I gotta say. For me, the important thing is we are celestial sons and daughters of God. So when we talk about the Supreme, we all know who the Supreme Being is. We all know that Michael of Nebadon is a celestial son who comes from a very far away. And we know the celestial cosmos, and we live in a celestial reality, a cosmic reality. So when I say people sit in spiritual darkness, and it says this in, like 10th appearance at Philadelphia, Jesus said, he talks about spiritual darkness. Actually, he talks about it many times when he's resurrected. To bring people out from the spiritual poverty and darkness, and having compassion on the world because of the trauma of being fatherless twice over is a great wound to the heart and the soul and the psyche, and having religions which are not able to feed the mind, the reason, the soul, the spirit are a great problem. So we, as sons and daughters of God in a higher world, coming into the children of mankind, the sons and daughters of men, we have a great gift to offer. And, I think about what the Jesus said after he was resurrected. It's important that you love the children who are in spiritual darkness, but isn't it also important to love one another? And for me, that's, and I'm sure it is for a lot of us all, that the desire to come together as one kind, as one kin, as one family, and to recognize that we are actually have been born as sons and daughters, which makes us brothers and sisters in the kingdom of heaven, is a foundational reality, which I think it would be good to see fostered, the seeds of the family connection, like a real strong desire to know one another, to reach out to one another, to care for and minister to one another, and help each other to develop the essential nucleus of the plan, which is to proclaim the gospel of the kingdom and to bring light to a world which is in darkness.
Thank you, David. I agree that we all need a positive means to share the gift and to welcome everyone into this group this family of the sons and daughters of God. Thanks for your comment. I think that, Rick, are we ready for time?
You still got a little bit of time left this segment.
Okay, so I think we need to move though. Paper 102, the foundations of religious faith. And in this paper, it discusses perfection, hunger, communion, and immortality. Oop, I didn't want to do that. Preparing for the vicissitudes of life. So this isn't the vicissitudes of life, it's preparing for them. Social service and altruistic benevolence, just as you just spoke of, David. There's a quote that talks in this paper about after receiving so much, at some point, the faith son realizes there must be some sacrifice that they give to make the world better for those around them. Reverence, awe, praise, and faith. And I'm a big fan of this praise business, and for me this goes back to the thing about the individual experience and what we do, our function that's recognized by the Supreme for those around us. When was the last time you heard anyone say praise God?
5 minutes ago.
There you go. What we do and what we believe is great, but do you remember when Jesus went to the baptism and they said, but why, and John said, why would you come to me for baptism? And Jesus said, because we must fulfill all righteousness. And that's for me what praise means, fulfilling righteousness, to share it with others so that others know that the person that stands next to them praises God, and God is remembered in life. It's just one more way to share the gospel, to share your faith openly. Okay, and unity is best found through philosophy. The Urantia book tells us so few mortals are true thinkers in modern times. True religion must act, and we all know that means that what we experience within has to pour out. God's love has to pour through us, flow through us to others. Knowledge, wisdom, and insight. If, as Dedrick said, we become more familiar with this truth, this revelation, hopefully it will enact in us the ideas, that it'll sponsor projects for us to help others. Rick and I both believe that when you're willing, that tasks come before you to do. God places tasks in front of you, and more than you can choose. I mean, it keeps you busy. So that's part of that whole passion and commitment, devotion, the urge, the willingness to walk with God means the willingness to accept those tasks. And survival values. That's something that I ran across that I thought was unusual, because we all want to survive. That comes with the very first adjutant mind spirit. But what does the Urantia book say about survival values? So let's go through these real quick. Prayer is indeed a part of religious experience, but it has been wrongly emphasized by modern religions. That one shocked me. Much to the neglect of the more essential communion of worship. The reflective powers of the mind are deepened and broadened by worship. Prayer may enrich the life, but worship illuminates destiny. Belief may not be able to resist doubt and withstand fear, but faith is always triumphant over doubting. for faith is both positive and living. The positive always has the advantage over the negative, truth over error, experience over theory, spiritual realities over the isolated facts of time and space. The convincing evidence of this spiritual certainty consists in the social fruits of the Spirit, which such believers, faithers, yield as a result of this genuine spiritual experience. Said Jesus, "If you love your fellows as I have loved you, then shall all men know that you are my disciples." And so that, we were talking just a minute ago about what can we do for those sitting in darkness. And Jesus was asked one time about being a friend. He was a friend, and that's how he made friends. He sought to know what people needed, and he wanted to do it for them. So that's an easy recipe to follow. Ethics is the external social or racial mirror which faithfully reflects the otherwise unobservable progress of internal spiritual and religious developments. So ethics is one way, but also we were told that another way to measure spiritual progress is by how we love our fellow man, if there is a gauge. Man has always thought of God in the terms of the best he knew, his deepest ideas and highest ideals. Even historic religion has always created its God conceptions out of its highest recognized values. Every intelligent creature gives the name of God to the best and highest thing he knows. And this for me is huge, because when we think of God as the very best thing we can imagine, and we share that, even if you would ask the question to someone, what's the best possible thing that you can think of, and put the God label on it, isn't that really what we're all doing? Is for morals, ethics, anything we think of, it's the highest concept we have in our heart. That's for us the best, the ideal. That's what we're all shooting for. And that unconscious growth that's going to happen, eventually we'll understand a higher value and we'll grasp that. But right now, everybody has their own best and highest ideals. And so we can't be a judge of someone else's. We can only evaluate our own. And that's where we get into a problem with the world, I think, right now, is because we're trying to judge others by our understanding. And it's impossible to do. We have to let them grow at their own pace and just do the best we can with our own ideals. Anyway, and then this next one, the teachings of Jesus constituted the first Urantian religion, which so fully embraced a harmonious coordination of knowledge, wisdom, faith, truth, and love as completely and simultaneously to provide temporal tranquility, intellectual certainty, moral enlightenment, philosophic stability, ethical sensitivity, God consciousness, and the positive assurance of personal survival. The faith of Jesus pointed the way to finality of human salvation, to the ultimate of mortal universe attainment, since it provided for salvation from material fetters, salvation from intellectual bondage, salvation from spiritual blindness, salvation from incompleteness of self, salvation from the limitations of self-consciousness, salvation from time, and salvation from finite existence. And they were all listed as salvations. This is sevenfold salvation. True, many apparently religious traits can grow out of non-religious roots. So this is what we were talking about, survival values. Man can intellectually deny God and yet be morally good, loyal, filial, honest, and even idealistic. Man may graft many purely humanistic branches onto his basic spiritual nature, and thus apparently prove his contentions in behalf of a godless religion. But such an experience is devoid of survival values, God knowingness, and God ascension. In such a mortal experience, only social fruits are forthcoming, not spiritual. The graft determines the nature of the fruit, notwithstanding that the living sustenance is drawn from the roots of original divine endowment of both mind and spirit. The intellectual earmark of religion is certainty. The philosophical characteristic is consistency, and the social fruits are love and service. So we have a lot of people in the world today that are what we would call humanists. They think as long as they live well, they're kind and good, loyal, honest, idealistic, moral to their own mind, that they don't need God. So what is this telling us about that? I believe that if we could tell them, and part of this is about how do we go about in the world and reason these gifts of truth that we know into what they believe without offending. If we could let them know that, okay, if they would equate those things with God and try to get to know him. You know, the last person who spoke to me and mentioned that as long as they were good and kind and did everything they could to live a moral life, an idealistic life, that they were happy. And I said, okay, would you say then that you hope that you survive? You hope that God is real? And he said, yeah, definitely. And I said, you just need proof, right? And he's like, yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I said, I think you're in good shape. As long as you hope, that means you're open, and God will find a way to give you the surety that he exists and that you're safe. You'll survive. Just keep yourself open. So Judy, did you have something that you wanted to say?
Yes, some things about what we've been discussing all along, starting with meditation, Jesus's words, what mechanism can we use to be more worshipful, both in our personal life and interaction with others. And to me, life is a living meditation. And I try to, the key for me is to be better at interactions with people. I mean, I can be a perfect angel when it's just me and God, or me and my thought adjuster. But how am I when I'm with people? And after interactions with people, I like to give thought to, well, how did I do? Could I have said something a little more kindly? Could I want to try to evaluate my interactions with people every single time I'm out there socially, which has been a little bit tough in the last year. I must say I haven't had as much experience, more so with family. But one of Jesus's words is symmetry. And what is our symmetry? When we're in the moment with our fellow brothers and sisters, whatever interaction is occurring has what I call a spiritual energetic effect larger than whatever we can see. It has an impact on everyone on this planet. It has an impact on the supreme universe as we know. And I take heart knowing that, because my little interaction with my sister or my brother, my husband, my children, is blossoming out much larger than what I even know. And that's what I care about and what I'm focused on. And I want to self-evaluate. And I can be pretty critical of myself after I'm with people. And I want to be. I want to grow. I want to know. I want, my divine helpers to point out where I can improve and, or even to say, yeah, you did a good job there. Keep that up. So that's all I have to say.
That's great, Judy. How about Becky?
Hi, just try to be brief. One of the things that I've gleaned from the Urantia book is every one of us have sort of a hole or a placement for God. We have this spirit of worship. We have the spirit of wisdom, of the adjutant spirits. The Holy Spirit, Holy Ghost is always in communication, talking with us. In the example that you just gave, when you do a good deed, then now we get the adjuster. So God is in us. All of those things are parts of God who are in all of us, whether you read the Urantia book or not. The spirit of truth that's now out there because Jesus ascending. It's all part of one of our ways to connect with someone. And that's what you did when you were talking with that gentleman, is you connect with their spiritual self and identify their spiritual self. And when you present things that way, allowing God to help you say the right words, things like that, that's when you can reach someone. And I think you did an excellent job. The more I read and understand and try to take in that in reality we're spiritual persons, then that elevates us so that a lot of these vicissitudes, these things that happen to us, these material things, are less likely to worry us. It's just an opportunity, like you say. So identifying God, identifying our work with each other, those are the things that I see as our personal religion.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you, Becky. You reminded me of something that I said recently to my husband, Rick. I was visiting someone in jail, and I thought, it was early in the morning and it was a blizzard basically. And I said to myself, but if that were Jesus waiting for me there in jail, waiting for a visit, how would I feel and what would I do and what would I say and how would I treat this person? And if I treated them like Jesus, how would I behave, differently? And then I thought to myself, what if I was Jesus visiting them in jail? And what would Jesus do for them? And it sort of helped me balance out my feelings and my behavior to feel as though I was treating him, but that I was treating him as he would treat someone. And if we could do that with everyone, whether they read the Urantia book or not, doesn't matter. If we could see the divine person in them like we would if it was Jesus, and if we could behave as though we were him, what we think he would do, what would Jesus do, we'd be in pretty good shape in this world, wouldn't we? If everyone acted like that, we would recognize the divine in everyone and behave accordingly. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next screen. And this is paper 103. And it talks about God and science and the philosophic harmony between them. And there are a lot of people that approach, religion in such a way as they believe in science, they believe in the purity of science, but there is harmony there. And so there's a way to share that with with those folks. Theology is always the study of your own religion. Environmental stimuli, that's us. It talks about us, the social sacrifice of the believer. We are the environmental stimuli that will change the world. Unity of religious experience, kindred spirits and similar experiences. Judy, you probably remember the great response we had in our UBIS class of people sharing their unity of religious experiences. And there was quite some amazing stories that happened. And you all might want to remember that if you've had an experience with kindred spirits where you had a more meaningful worship or just a prayer together with a friend, something that was meaningful that helped you touch their lives, their spirit, or it touched yours. Those are the kind of things that maybe you could help recreate. Those don't have to be once in a lifetime experiences. That's part of us improving our religious experience, setting the tone, finding out what inspires us. And those kinds of experiences and relationships might be part of it. Creating beautiful surroundings when you worship and pray, music, art, whatever inspires you. Fill your life with those things that prompt you to an experience with the Father. Spiritual communion, the divine invitation. Now we can have spiritual communion with each other, but we have a standing invitation, and I would like to show that to you. That standing invitation is from Christ Michael, the creator son of Nebadon. And he requests the pleasure of a private audience with you for spiritual communion, a remembrance supper, as often as you think of him, and a rendezvous with the Heavenly Father. Now you could do one today, and you can do one as often as you think of him, and he'll always be there. The Spirit of truth is always with us. But we, as willing partners, can have a rendezvous with him and the Father. And the thought of that was pretty amazing to me. Now, we probably don't have time and we aren't prepared to do a communion today. But each of you might take this thought when you leave and spare a moment to meet with Christ Michael. He's waiting. And by the way, it's the only thing he ever asked of us. And he asked us not to forget him, to remember him. So that's the least we can do. And I'm going to go back to the next screen. Love flows like water through service and ministry. What Michael is to Nebadon, the supreme is to the finite cosmos. His deity is the great avenue through which the love of the Father flows outward to all creation, through us. He is the great avenue through which finite creatures pass inward in the quest of the Father, who is love. Even thought adjusters are related to him. In original nature and divinity, they are like the Father. But when they experience the transactions of time in the universes of space, they become like the Supreme. Love first and service opportunities follow. Be willing to do God's will and tasks will appear. Great channels of love, faith, and service flow in powerful currents. We must move with the currents of truth, beauty, and goodness, and we become part of the channel. Jesus, by the power of his personal love for men, could break the hold of sin and evil. He thereby set men free to choose better ways of living. Jesus portrayed a deliverance from the past, which in itself promised a triumph for the future. Forgiveness thus provided salvation. The beauty of divine love, once fully admitted to the human heart, forever destroys the charm of sin and the power of evil. So we become free. What will you do? Would you like for your religious experience to be a reality that is transcendent to reason, science, and philosophy, wisdom, and all other human achievements? Your convictions to be unassailable, to have superhuman certainty of logic and knowledge, to experience superbly divine satisfaction, indomitable courage, unquestioning devotion, supreme loyalty, and an eternal, ultimate, and universal final destiny? Effort leads to faith, and faith leads to knowing God. And knowing God is where we began this lesson. The intellectual earmark of religion is certainty. The philosophical characteristic is consistency. The social fruits are love and service. So I have one more suggestion for you all. And you don't need to do this for me, but you might want to do it for yourself. The Consecration Oath. The sacred vows we speak are more than just words. A subtle yet powerful shift takes place in our souls when we make a promise. A vow is both a tool we employ in order to facilitate transformation within ourselves and an expression of will. Thus, to make an oath is to communicate to the universe and our deeper selves our commitment to the principles most important to us. Fulfilling a sacred vow presents a challenge, exercising our willpower and aiding personal growth. When we speak a sacred vow out loud rather than reciting it in our minds or recording it on paper, our voices project our promises into the deepest reaches of the universe. It's important that we remember that a vow made with the sincerest of intentions has the power to carry on past our earthly lifetimes. A well-chosen vow encourages commitment and dedication. And so I encourage you to consider making a vow and saying it out loud to the universe that you're going to pursue your religious experience to the utmost and whatever else you want to make the vow about. And I wish you all well on your spiritual journeys. And I hope this has been helpful to you in some way. Rick tells me that our time is up and it's time to unshare, but I would like to say thank you for sharing your afternoon with us. May God bless you. And if you have any further comments you would like to make, you're welcome to.
Hey, just thanks everyone for, it was a great, very well presented, and, the theme through the whole thing seems like the thought adjuster, there we go again. And Jesus, and if we could all do all that stuff, we'd be great. So thank you so much, Susan and all you guys. It was very enjoyable.
Thanks for being here, Bruce.
Kurt's got his hand.
Likewise. Thank you, sister. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, David.
Susan.
Great to see you. Kurt?
You too.
Yeah, this was very good. You just barely touched the surface. I just want to put a plug in that the Urantia University Cafe this Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Time will be doing next 2 weeks, we'll be doing a thing on the religion of personal experience. So it follows right along with this.
Definitely. It sounds like it'd be a great follow-up. Thank you, Kurt. David Ryman?
Yes, I want to thank you too. This obviously helps me in my continued growth spiritually. It's been beautiful. It's been a beautiful thing. But I want to take a real quick footnote. Susan, your artwork on Richard Warren's books is beautiful. I really appreciate it. and Richard Warren's books are wonderful. And Rick, thank you so much for your editorial efforts on those 4 books that I have read. They're wonderful books. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Oh,
He's
thank
got
you.
another one on the way. Appreciate those
Glad you
comments.
enjoyed them.
Anybody else? Oh, I really appreciate y'all being here.
Well, thank you too. I want to say, Susan and Rick, you always do a wonderful job.
Thank you.
I see you putting on a presentation. It's like, I'm going to that one.
That's
So,
wonderful.
you're dear to my heart. It's always good to see Jeannie. Jeannie's always there too. I've said before that Jeannie doesn't get the credit she deserves, but you know, Jeannie, she is always there. Thank you, Jeannie.
That's for sure.
My pleasure.
I love
know
everybody's
to-
company.
Thank you.
We couldn't do it without
Nicholas
you.
raised his hand. Nicholas, do you want to say something?
Oh, you're muted, buddy.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to say thank you very much. I'm going to take these opportunities as they come. And I just kept thinking about, just praise the absolute God of infinite perfection. And that's what it's all about, is that by serving the brotherhood of man through the fatherhood of God, we have this want, this burning spiritual desire to willingly concede to God's will every single day. And it's just all about progressing. And that's what it's about. If we can just love each other like, Christ loves us and the Father loves the Son, then we're all good to go. But we've just got to get out there and do it. And, I'm a Christian preacher, but I preach the Urantia book to my congregation and they don't even know it. So I'm giving them, I'm feeding them eternal truths from this wonderful, wonderful, precious book. This precious revelation and stuff, and it's just beautiful. And I've grown leaps and bounds since discovering this wonderful, beautiful treasure. So
That's great to hear.
I love you. We're soul siblings. There's nothing greater than discovering, another member of the eternal family, like it says in the Urantia book. And so it's a joy.
Congratulations. You are doing a wonderful job. God
Yeah.
bless you.
God bless you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
My friend Jimmer is
Jimmer.
here. It's so good to see you, Jimmer.
Hi, Susan.
How are you, my friend?
Hey, Jimmer.
Thank you. Hi, Rick. Thank you very much for inviting me. This is a great opportunity to meet again and learn from each other. And I am just curious and I'm amazingly surprised that your theme today regarding the essentials of religion is just a topic that I am studying on. So I am looking for good things.
Bennett?
Yeah, I wanted to say to Nicholas, your congregation may not know where these words come from, but the ingester inside of them is saying, yes.
Oh, you know what? And they hear those words like absolute and ultimate and supreme, and they hear these words that the soul is just like saying thank you, and the adjuster's like, you're making my job easier. Just go along with me, It's just beautiful.
Thank you all.
Love you all.
Yeah.
Love you too.
Thank you. Love you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. You did a wonderful job today, and I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you very, very much for your willingness to serve. And thank you, Rick. You are also a great servant. God bless you.
God bless you, and thank you, Jeannie. We couldn't do this without you.